I'm back with another preview and predictions video, but this time in the Championship for Game Week 45. So we're almost at the very end of the season in the Championship, but there's still a lot to play for, despite the relegation places being completely confirmed. So we'll start with Friday night's game at Loftus Road, QPR versus Sheffield United. Now, of course, this is a massive game in terms of the complexion for the playoff places, given that Sheffield United are 6th on 69 points. So this is a massive game for them, and they come up against a QPR side who have completely fallen off a cliff from around about 2022, really. QPR, for so much of the season, were playing great football, they were doing so well, they were in the playoff places, but since their collapse, they've just now got nothing to play for, and there is news that Mark Warburton is leaving at the end of the season, which, in my opinion, I think is the wrong choice, because yes, QPR have collapsed, but you've got to look at the bigger picture. And Mark Warburton's got this QPR side playing really good football on a shoestring budget compared to other teams, the likes of Bournemouth, Fulham and Forest even. And they were competing for so long of the season. And yes, they have collapsed in a really bad way. But the thing with sacking a manager is, are you going to appoint someone that will be an upgrade? And in my opinion, I don't think there is an upgrade, to be honest. So I'm very surprised that Mark Warburton has left. I think continuity would have been better for QPR, and to give Mark Warburton the full summer to improve the squad further and then give him another go next season in the Championship. So I think that's the wrong decision personally, but I can definitely see why QPR have done that, because they have had a horrific collapse. And it's not like they've performed terribly in 6 games and lost all of them. It's been quite a sustained long period of bad performances and results. So like I said, I can see why QPR have sacked Mark Warburton. I just don't think it's the right choice, because I think there's a bigger picture to be had. But anyway, it means that QPR basically can just use this game as a complete free hit. So for Sheffield United, it will suit them a lot, given that they know the manager's not going to be there. So it's a weird game to call in that sense, and not so difficult in terms of prediction, because, I mean, Sheffield United, they've got to go to Loftus Road and win. They'll be full of intent, and I think for the QPR players and the fans, it will be quite hard to get up for this game. So I'm going to say Sheffield United will win 3-1. Then we have Barnsley v Preston, and I think Preston are certainly contenders for on the beach. Aside from their very, very good win against Blackpool, and QPR to an extent, although that game could have easily ended 3-3, aside from the Blackpool result, since then they've drawn 1-1 to Millwall at home, then they got battered against Fulham, which is understandable to be fair, and then they put in a terrible performance against Blackburn. And there's a number of fans online that are frustrated with Ryan Lowe and are not sure whether he should be manager next season. But since his appointment, Preston would only be a few points off the playoffs. So I think he still should be given the time to build his squad for next season. And also, Ryan Lowe's style of football is far more possession orientated and attacking minded than Frankie McAvoy and Alex Neil. So I think Ryan Lowe's earned that time and chance to be there next season, but I think they are very much on the beach now. And from Barnsley's point of view, it's just a massive missed opportunity, because if they brought in the likes of Dominic Skina and Bassi at the beginning of the season and just maybe picked up a few more points, so maybe they'd beaten Peterborough at home and they beat Reading at home, then this would have been a massive chance to get 3 points and get out of the relegation zone. But alas, they're at the bottom of the table, despite Derby having a minus 21 point deduction. Barnsley have had a terrible season, and it's a hard game to call in that sense, because both teams have got nothing to play for, and they're both arguably on the beach. So I'm going to say 0-0. Unlike this next game, Forest-Swansea, both teams are not on the beach. Swansea having 4 draws in a row and are performing relatively well. And then you have Forest, of course, third. A phenomenal season they've had. Steve Cooper has been fabulous as manager, and of course they've got so much to play for, given they've got 76 points and are 3 points away from Bournemouth. I just really hope Forest don't lose this game, so that the Bournemouth Forest game can just be a massive, like, almost playoff final in many ways. So selfishly, I do want Forest to win, but of course Swansea won't be an easy opponent. They've performed very well this season, I think, and okay, they've got a lot to learn. They've got a young squad, a young manager as well, and they have let Leeds slip in the last couple of games, drawing against Reading and Bournemouth, but both results feeling like losses, given that Swansea were 4-1 up and 3-0 up in those different games. So Swansea, I think they'll perform well, but with Forest's form and the way they're playing, I just cannot see Forest not winning this game. So I'm going to say Forest win this game 3-1. Then we have Reading at home against West Brom. Of course, Reading now mathematically safe, and it's a very much relief for myself and other Reading fans. I don't think they'll finish higher than 21st, so they can just use this game as a free hit and a chance maybe to play some young players and rebuild for next season. But of course, Paul Ince is temporary manager, so it's still hard to figure out whether he will be the permanent manager there or not. So Reading will just use it as a free hit. But as for West Brom, they've had a terrible season, given their expectations would have been to get automatically promoted or promoted via the playoffs. So they've had a really bad season. At least from their perspective, they know there will be some continuity in the sense that Steve Bruce will be there next season. I mean, whether some West Brom fans want Steve Bruce there to be next season is another question. But for West Brom, they've just struggled to score goals all season. However, Reading are the worst team defensively, so I imagine West Brom will score. And of course, Andy Carroll now plays for West Brom, so he'll almost certainly score. So I'm going to say this game will finish 1-1 with Andy Carroll scoring. Then we have Millwall versus Peterborough, a massive game. Millwall can still reach the playoffs despite being 9th with 2 games left. They're only 3 points behind Sheffield United, and although they played Bournemouth on the final day, Bournemouth by then could already be promoted. Or, in a worse situation for Bournemouth, Bournemouth could be like having to need a win to reach the top 2, but then collapse under pressure. Whereas Millwall, they'll just be thinking anything extra will be amazing, because definitely they wouldn't have been expected to finish in the playoffs. I mean, Gary Rowett's done a fabulous job as Millwall manager, so I think Millwall will be well up for this game. Of course, Peterborough United, even though their performances have improved since Grant McCann's been the manager, they've still had a terrible season and they are, of course, relegated. So I think Millwall will be well up for this game. I'm going to say Millwall will win 2-1. Then we have Middlesbrough against Stoke. Again, another team at home fighting out for a final playoff spot in Middlesbrough. They got an excellent midweek win against Cardiff, so they'll be looking to repeat that against Stoke. And I said previously that Borough have quite good fixtures towards the end of the season, given they play Cardiff and Stoke at home. And of course they beat Cardiff, so they'll be looking to beat Stoke. But Stoke, they're such a weird team, because whenever they play a team in the top half, they seem to win. Whereas when they play a team struggling down below, they just seem to lose. So although Borough won last time, their performances haven't been particularly good in recent weeks. So I'm going to say Stoke will take the lead and then Borough will get a goal but then struggle to get a second. So I'm going to say that game is going to be a 1-1 draw. Then we have Cardiff versus Birmingham. I think this is another contender for on-the-beach derby. Obviously, Cardiff have got nothing to play for, and to be fair, they've been utilising their fixtures well, in the sense that they're experimenting with a lot of different formations and players, and using a lot of young players as well, the likes of Denham at centre-back. So I think Cardiff will do the same thing again and experiment, which is relatively sensible, but I'm still yet to be convinced by Steve Morrison whether he's the manager. He should be the manager next season, but I guess he probably will have the summer to rebuild. As for Birmingham, again, they're very much on the beach. It would have been very easy for them to just not play well against Millwall at home after their terrible, terrible loss against Blackpool, which was 6-1. But they did quite well against Millwall at home, and they'll be looking to put in a decent performance. If anything, Lee Bowyer will, because if he doesn't do well, then he'll almost certainly not be the manager next season. So it's a big game, mainly really for Lee Bowyer. So tough one to call, but I'm going to say Cardiff will just sneak out with a 1-0 win. But I don't think it'll be a very good game. Or, because it's on the beach derby, maybe it could be a very entertaining game and lots of goals. But I just don't see it. I think Cardiff will win 1-0, but it won't be a good game. Then we have Bristol City versus Hull. Yet again, two teams with nothing to play for. Bristol City, of course, performing quite well up front. They've got Vyman, who's got 20 goals. Phenomenal effort from him. And Semenyo and Martin seem to be clicking again up front. And then Hull, I mean, they have actually been doing quite well away from home. And I'm sure there'll be a number of clubs after the signature of Keane Lewis Potter. So it could be an entertaining game. So I'm going to say it will finish 2-2. Lots of goals. Then we have Blackburn versus Bournemouth. Again, two teams with a lot to play for, similar to, you'd say, well, Millwall versus, not Millwall, Peterborough maybe, but maybe Forest Swansea as such. But yeah, Blackburn, Bournemouth, obviously both teams got a lot to play for. Blackburn at home, they need a win in order to secure a playoff spot. They're on 66 points, so they have to win in order to reach the playoffs. But Bournemouth, of course, they've just stumbled somewhat. They looked absolutely clear for second, but now they're only 3 points ahead of Forest, so they're going to have to win. And to be fair, given Rovers' patchy form, despite the very good result against Preston, I'm going to say Bournemouth will win this game 2-0. Then Coventry at home to Huddersfield. This is certainly two teams with something to play for. Coventry on 63 points, who have had a phenomenal season. I guess maybe not, because Coventry, they've just not got enough points now. I think they're just about out of it now, unfortunately for them. So despite that though, Coventry have had a phenomenal season. They could be really proud of what they've done, and I think they'll do well next season, to be fair. But Huddersfield, of course, they're fourth. They've got a playoff spot secured. Maybe could sneak into the top two. Who knows? But I think they'll spice it up. I think Huddersfield will win the game 2-1. And then finally, Fulham at home against Luton. Fulham, they've had a phenomenal season. They'll almost certainly win the league. They basically have. It's just not mathematically been confirmed. The main focus with this game was whether Mitrovic can get a couple of goals and break the all-time championship record outright. As for Luton, they're of course fighting for a playoff spot. And to be fair, they are on 72 points. So I think they'll do it. And given they play Reading at home on the final day, who have nothing to play for and are so bad defensively, I think Luton will win that game regardless. So I think Luton have a playoff spot all but confirmed, which is just a testament to what an amazing job Nathan Jones has done. Fantastic from him, and it's hard to argue that he should be manager of the season. You had other managers in contention, the likes of Carlos Corberán and Steve Cooper, but Nathan Jones certainly is right up there for manager of the season. And yeah, it was great to see him win that award in that sense for Luton fans. So they'll be looking to go to Craven Cottage full of confidence, and I think they'll perform well. And it's a good test for Luton when they do finish in the playoffs. I say when because, you know, they are on 72 points. They almost certainly will finish in the playoff spots now. So, like I said, it's a really good practice for Nathan Jones and his team going into the playoffs, playing Fulham away, the hardest team, and away from home. But I don't think they're going to win. I think Fulham will win 2-0, and they will mathematically confirm the title. So, a lot of exciting games in the Championship. You've got a couple of fixtures in Rovers, Bournemouth, and also Fulham, Luton, where you've got both teams have got to play for something. And, of course, the main thing I'm hoping for is that Forest and Bournemouth win, or the gap narrows. So that going into that Forest-Bournemouth game, it's basically winner takes all, which would be so exciting. But thank you for watching this video and being patient with me. I really appreciate it. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you.